Hello friends, my name is Ngum. Welcome to Ngum's Garden Possibilities. It is July and it's time for a community garden update. I would like to take you through the community garden today to show you what's doing well and what's growing. So come with me, let's do that right now. I am at the rear end of my community garden, and this is the main area where we planted some corn. Just like we did last year, we planted our corn in succession. That way all the corn doesn't get ready at the same time. We want to get different levels of harvest when we harvest the corn. So this is the area where we planted the first corn, this area right here behind me and right over there. So we planted the corn in this area first, and about 3 weeks later we planted corn in the other part of the garden. So we have a 3-week interval between which we planted corn. And I also want to share that in between the corn we have squash, we have watermelon, we have zucchini. They are vining plants, and as the corn is growing, the zucchini is gonna climb on the corn. So the corn will serve as a trellis for the zucchini, the squash, and all of that. And it will also provide a lot of ground cover to keep the weeds at bay and also to help with moisture. That will reduce our time for weeding, mulching and all that. So we can focus our time and energy in other parts of the garden that need it. On this end of the garden next to the corn, we planted our peanuts, or groundnuts as some people know them. So we have 2 beds of peanuts on this side, and as you can see, we have the weed barrier that we laid down. It really helps a lot with the peanuts in minimizing weeds and also retaining moisture. We were able to cut out holes in the weed barrier fabric and then laid it down. So the 2 ways that we used to plant our peanuts is we soaked the peanuts, and then once they had started sprouting, we planted that. And then some of them had already germinated to about 1 inch or 2 in height, and we planted those as well. What we have noticed this year is that we've had a lot of issues with birds and wild turkey in this area, digging up our corn and our peanuts. So let me show you an example of what that looks like. So we have their droppings right there, and then here's a feather from the wild turkey. And if you look at the holes where we planted the peanuts, a lot of them don't have any peanuts in it, and you can see where they have been digging to pull out the peanuts. But they have only been eating the peanuts that were sprouted. The peanuts that were already established plants are still intact. So I guess that's a lesson for next year, or for anybody that's planting peanuts in an open area like this where you're prone to birds and wild turkey. Next year I will nurse my peanuts so they actually have some growth to them before we plant. So that's just a lesson. On this bed right here is something new that I tried this year, and it is Folere, also known as Bissap or Sorrel. I don't know what variety this is, if this is the African. Oh, actually somebody gave me the seeds. These are seeds from Cameroon, and I nursed them inside. They are a plant in the hibiscus family, and they are a warm, loving crop. I nursed them inside and eventually transplanted them once they were about 2 to 3 inches. They were a little bit stunted this past month because the night temperatures were cold. It's only now where the temperatures are much warmer that I'm seeing green leaves and significant growth, but this is what it looks like. Eventually they will grow really tall, almost like an okra plant, produce a flower, and then that flower will dry up and they produce a calyx. That's what's harvested, and then you use that to make your hibiscus drink. So I'll bring you along in the process. And then on this bed we have our okra and a few watermelon plants, but the main crop on this bed is okra. They are in 2 different stages. We have these ones that are much taller, and these were transplanted. They were already plants when they were put in the ground, and they're doing really well. There are different species of okra. And then we have okra that are actually planted from seed. Okra is a very heat-loving plant. I've discovered that over the past few years, if the temperatures are not really warm I would talk about 70 and up, it won't sprout. And it's only now that I'm noticing that some of the okra that I planted from seed is sprouting. One thing that I did differently this year is that I soaked my okra seeds for 24 hours and then planted them. It just helps to speed up the germination. So here's our okra bed, and it will start picking up from here forward because the temperatures are much warmer. On these beds right here is where we have our potato crop, and we have several kinds of potatoes that we planted. On this bed we have fingerling potatoes on this part of the bed, and this bed as well. And then this bed has purple potatoes, mainly purple potatoes. And then the rest of the beds have Yukon Gold potatoes in them. There are two things that we've noticed about our potato crop that are helping us or working to our advantage this year. Number one, we planted them when the weather was cooler. That was early in May when the ground was already thawed, and that really helped the potato plants to pick up. We took potatoes that were left over from last year that had sprouted, and that's what we planted. Secondly, we put down a lot of mulch on the potato bed. There were leaves that were left over from last year. So after we planted the potatoes, we put a lot of leaves on there to help retain moisture and to keep the ground temperatures a little bit warm for the potatoes, and they've done really well. The one thing that we're dealing with this year that was the same as last year is the potato beetle. And this is how we have been dealing with it. Let me show you a few examples. In the leaves are examples of what the potato beetles are doing. Here's one right here. That's an example of it. And what we've been doing is that we have been spraying with neem oil. Neem oil mixed with a little bit of water. We've been spraying that, and the idea is that you try to target it so the neem oil gets on the leaves while the potato beetle is still in its young stage, so that by the time it grows, you have few of them and most of them will be dead. So that's what we've been doing. We also just smashed some of them to deal with that. So we have few of them right now, and that's great. But we hope to have a really good potato harvest this year. And thankfully, we have a good problem on our hands. As you can see, we have a lot of these tiny plants on the floor, on the ground right here between the potatoes. That is green, or what is otherwise known as amaranth. The seeds come back year after year. They are perennial, and they are easily dispersed by the wind. So we really didn't have to plant green this year. We have a lot of it in between the potato beds and all around in the garden, which is great. This is all green. This is all amaranth. In this area, we have 3 beds with peanuts that we planted. And over on this bed, we have more amaranth and sweet bitter leaf, the Bayangi bitter leaf. I started these from seed and eventually transplanted them. We've had a lot of rain in the past few weeks, so they have picked up quite a bit. Over on these 2 beds, we have our tomatoes. We have mostly tomatoes that I started from seed. We have Roma tomatoes, Amish paste tomatoes, big boy tomatoes, golden tomatoes. We have slicing tomatoes and canning tomatoes. That's what we have there. And then this last bed has more sweet bitter leaf. We have the young ones. They're a little bit yellow because it has been cold this past month, but it's getting warmer. And then you have these ones that have picked up quite a bit. And then over here, we have this plant that's self-seeded from last year. I think it's mustard green. If you can help us identify it, please let us know in the comment section. It's probably in the Brassica family. It looks like mustard green. I'm not sure, but it's self-seeded from last year. We have more tomatoes on this bed. And then this bed has a mixture of tomatoes and sweet peppers. We have sweet peppers on this bed. Most of them I started from seed. There are different kinds of bell peppers, the snacking lunchbox peppers, different colors, red, orange, yellow, purple, chocolate. I love the rainbow of colors that peppers provide. We have more sweet peppers on this side, this bed as well. Again, you notice the weed barrier that helps to retain moisture and suppress weeds. And then over on this bed, this is where our hot peppers start. We love our hot peppers. Ghost peppers on this bed. That's what we have here. We have habanero peppers on this bed. We have orange, yellow, and red habanero peppers. And then on this side, it's a similar situation, habanero peppers. And I think we also have some Carolina Reaper in there. So we're hoping to get a good crop of hot peppers this year. One way to ensure that my pepper plants are healthy and productive is compost. That's what I've done. And I did the same thing last year. On this bed, we plan to nurse our Njama or garden huckleberry. That's still coming. It's still in the tender stages. But I want to point out that I also planted some ginger. Here, we have some plants that are already sprouting. Ginger loves heat, and it does well in a semi-shaded area under this tree. Over on this bed, we have some of our garden huckleberry, also known as Njama. And in the middle of the bed, we have some onions that I started from seed. I have different varieties of red onions, yellow Spanish onions, and Pedersen onions. Apparently, what I read was that the onions help to repel some of the pests that attack the Njama. We just planted the Njama. It's still quite young, but it's slowly picking up. So we have Njama on this bed and on this one as well. And you can see the onions in the middle. These are onions, and they are long day onions because that's the kind of onion that does well in our zone up here in Minnesota. At the ends of these beds, I planted some fever grass, also known as lemongrass, and I planted this from an established shoot. It's so hard to grow this from seed. I tried this year and last year and I didn't have a lot of success. So I have established shoots that I use, and I have them at the tail end of the bed. On this bed, we have what is known as anchia. It's in the garden egg family, but you don't eat the fruit, you eat the leaves. It's really tender. We just transplanted this. This is what the plant looks like. We also have some right here that we nursed. We're just waiting for this to pick up in height, and then we'll transplant the rest of it. I have some leeks here as well that I started from seed. And once they are bigger and reach a good height, then I'll separate them and plant them in the middle of this bed. Over here we have Brussels sprouts. We have more anchia. And then at the side of this bed, I planted some carrots. On the side of the bed. These I started early in May. They love the cool weather. In this planter, I have carrots. There are different colors of carrots that I started, I think it was late May. And at this point, they are ready to be thinned out. Otherwise, they don't have a lot of room to grow, and you have very tiny carrots. So I hate doing this, but all you do is you pull out the carrot plant so they have at least 2 to 3 inches between each plant. That allows the carrot to grow bigger. And I have nursed some more herbs in here. This is celery, and these two are Malabar spinach. This is an example of what the Malabar spinach looks like. It's a climbing plant. It does well in the heat as opposed to the regular spinach that we know about that doesn't like heat and would bolt. This would do well with the heat here, and because it climbs, you can plant it in a small space. We use it a lot in Cameroon for making okra soup. So it's a vegetable that you can harvest and put in your okra soup. In these 2 pots, I've nursed some lovage. It's a perennial, and we have one of them that is starting to sprout. My goal is to get a couple of plants that I can put in the ground, and I wouldn't have to plant it again because it will come back year after year. In these 2 small planters over here, I mainly have herbs in them. We have green onions, we have parsley, we have purple basil. Over here I have more parsley, and I have sweet basil in there. I had some Swiss chard, but something ate all the plants, almost all the plants, and we have just very few of them left. We have more carrots in these barrels that need to be thinned out, and in this one as well. And then over here, I have golden beets. I have golden beets that I started from seed in May. I love the tender leaves that you can use for salad. On this bed, we have several things going on. These cages contain what we know as fluted pumpkin or okongobong or ugu. That's what it is. It's a really difficult plant to grow. The seeds are very sensitive. You need to plant them when they're really fresh, and you need to start them indoors. They're only doing really well now because it's much warmer. I had to wait until the temperatures were, I would say, 65 and up before bringing them outside. And then in the middle of the bed, we have some carrots. And then I have some cucumbers here, and tomatoes at the edge. The idea is that I will put a string between the poles on this side of the garden to create some kind of a trellis on which the cucumbers can vine. And these cages would be a trellis for the okongobong because it's a vining plant. I planted some mammoth sunflowers, again for beauty, to attract pollinators so they can pollinate our peppers, our tomatoes, our pumpkins, our squashes. Those grow really tall, and they can also provide a sturdy trellis on which some of these plants can climb on. Over here we have garlic. I planted this in the fall, and I've already harvested the garlic scapes, which is the flowering plant of hardneck garlic. It has a mild garlic flavor, and you can use it for sautés, for your soups. It's just wonderful to eat. So pretty much, maybe in about a month or so, we'll be harvesting our garlic. And that will free up this bed so I can plant something else. Over on this bed, we have broccoli and cauliflower. That's what these are. These were donated to us, so we planted them in this area. I'm hoping we can put some mulch down because broccoli doesn't like the heat. It will bolt and it will start forming flowers. So we'll probably have to put some mulch down to cool down the temperature. And then in the middle, we have garden egg. This is the African garden egg. You can eat it as a snack. You can boil it and eat it with a lot of our African dishes as a side, or you can actually make a garden egg stew with it. And interspersed between the garden egg, we have watermelon, lemongrass again. That's what you have on these two beds. Over on this side, we have mint and chives. This is a perennial that comes back year after year. Now, if you don't want mint to spread in an area of your garden, don't plant it in the ground, because it's going to take over. So we have mint there. We also have some onions that we started from seed. These are different onions that we have here. And then we also have some water leaf in this area. I planted some water leaf from stem. That's starting to pick up now. This is the water leaf right here. Water leaf can be grown between crops, so it can do well in a full sun or partial shade. And then you have our cabbage. To help, last week I noticed the white butterflies already around here, and to stay ahead of them in terms of minimizing the number of caterpillars that we have from that, we've been spraying with neem oil. That's what we've been doing. So these two beds have mostly water leaf and the cabbage, and then I have a few onions in there just to help. From what I read, let me know in the comment section if I'm wrong or not, that the onions help to repel some of the pests that typically attack the cabbage. On this side, you know me, I love my flowers. We have marigolds, we have chamomile. This is a perennial. It's a great relaxing tea, calming tea. And then we have zinnias. In this planter, I have small flowers. It's called stalks. I just transplanted them a few days ago, and they produce lovely colors. I think they are different colors, so they will provide a nice addition to the garden, attract bees and other pollinators. The zinnia seeds and the marigold seeds are from last year. I just saved some of the pods and scattered them in the garden. These are the marigold seeds from last year. All I did was scatter them in the garden, and they've been doing really well. And the zinnia seeds as well. This is the side of the garden where I have my mushroom patch. I planted wine cap mushrooms here last year, and all I needed was the wine cap spores and some mulch. And it's in a shaded area, which is really nice, so the mushrooms don't dry out. I'll bring you up close to show you some of the mushrooms. We've been harvesting a lot of mushrooms this year with the rains and the moisture that we've had. These are not really big, but this is what they look like. And pretty much almost every day, if I come here, I would harvest some mushrooms. We have been competing with the deer and the squirrels and the slugs, like you can see, with the mushrooms. So I don't let them get really big. Otherwise, the deer and the squirrels will get to them, and the slugs will get to them. They are much tastier when they're smaller like this. So I've been picking a lot of mushrooms. And with the rains that we've been having recently, it has really helped. All I have to do in this area every once in a while is weed it and then water it so it stays moist. But I'm just gonna look around and see what I can harvest. I think there was a deer here probably earlier today. Look at the hoofs. That's deer activity. One more. I also realized that, here's an example. If you leave the mushrooms to get bigger, over time, I don't know what gets into them, but then you get these worms that get into the mushroom. I don't know if you can see it. Let me open this top part. But there are worms in there. And so I've been trying to harvest them when they are much younger, so I don't have that issue. But that's pretty much it with this mushroom patch. It's low maintenance, and you can establish something like this in an area of the garden under a tree that has some shade. Throw some mulch on it, and you'll be harvesting mushrooms year after year. I don't have to do anything else but add mulch. Very low maintenance. All right. Okay. This side of the garden has more peppers. We have jalapeno peppers, we have sweet peppers, bell peppers, big boy bell peppers. So we're expecting a big crop or big harvest of sweet peppers this year. And then transitioning, we have more tomatoes here. We have Roma tomatoes, we have big boy tomatoes. That's a slicing tomato. And then we have more peppers over here. These are jalapenos on this bed. And as if we didn't have enough hot peppers, we have more habanero peppers on this bed. We mulch them with leaves from our backyard to help with weeds and to retain moisture. And then over on this bed, we have more peanuts. Thankfully, the turkey and the birds have not really done a lot of destruction on this bed. Most of the peanuts are still there, which we're thankful for. Over on these two beds, we have sweet potatoes. We have two different varieties of sweet potatoes. We have red Japanese potato, sweet potato on this bed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of them dried out, but I still have about 2 plants left. And then the rest of the sweet potatoes are purple potatoes. So I just enjoy these varieties of potatoes because once you cook them, they have a more dry consistency. And over on this bed right here, this one and this other bed, we have our cowpeas. You harvest the tender leaves of the cowpea plant, blanch them, and saute them with red palm oil and onions, salt and pepper. And most people eat that with corn fufu or with boiled yams. It's a real delicacy. One reason why I planted it this year is because it does really well, it grows fast, and it doesn't require a lot of processing in terms of storage. You just need to harvest, blanch, and you're good to go. You don't need to pick out any leaves or tender stems like you would do with jama or bitter leaf. And then this last part of the bed has our green beans. Green beans are doing really well. The rains have really helped. These are our green beans. And one thing with green beans is that the more you pick them, the more they would produce. If you let the green beans ripen and form the actual bean that you plant eventually, then you stall the plant because you're telling the plant that it's time to produce seed for the next season. So just keep harvesting. We have more sweet peppers and hot peppers on this bed right here. And like with every garden that I've come to appreciate and enjoy, I have flowers on this bed. I planted mammoth sunflowers, zinnias, and marigolds on this bed. So this will be a wonderful sight to see from the road because this side of the garden is close to the road. Very attractive for pollinators. We have some of the marigolds and the zinnias that are already coming up. And these mammoth flowers, sunflower seeds, are seeds that I saved from last year. This is what they look like. A very pretty sight. We have a lot of them coming up. So all of this area will be full of flowers. There you have it, friends. We have come to the end of our garden tour. I am appreciative of you all for being here, for tuning in, and for watching till the end. I hope you were able to pick up a thing or two about some of the things that are growing in my garden and some of the struggles and some of the wins that I've had with the things that are growing. Do apply them to your garden and leave me a comment below on some of the challenges or some of the successes that you're having in your garden. Also, let me know where you're growing from. Please help me grow this channel by sharing, by liking, and by commenting. But also remember to subscribe. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned for a backyard garden tour that's coming soon.